greenhouse gas grants. Okay. So we can speak about those as well. The one trick to these grants, folks, is you need to have a community organization. I cannot stress that enough to you, that you need to come together, and we're here to help you, but to create a fire safe council. There was an Oak to Timberline Fire Safe Council in this area that tried to get off the ground and do a really good job. They haven't had a lot of support. It's pretty much non-functional as we speak. There's also another program that's very good, a Firewise community program. These grants have to go to nonprofits as a group. We will help you get them off the ground. We'll work with you to try to get grants. There's never a guarantee in grants. They're extremely, extremely competitive. The grants up and down the state. I know the last grants that there was $9 million. I believe there was over $50 million worth of applications for $9 million. So you have to be very competitive for these grants, but they are available. So it's a matter of working together, coming together as a community, having a nonprofit organization, and then we can go after these grant dollars. Maybe possibly, depending on the legislature is the one that releases dollars from the fire prevention fee to CAL FIRE or to the Board of Forestry about how they would like to do grants, but that money has to come from the legislature. They control those dollars for us to do grants. But if that happens, and we can, I don't ever want to say there won't be grants for that, but currently there is not today. But there are grants if we come together as a community and try to get those moving. Yes, ma'am. The waiver is. Right, I understand. I personally don't. I'll let Edwin try to answer that question as best as possible. Okay.
Now, if you're talking about the fees, there is a cost associated with some of the harvest documents that we're talking about. The costs are not mostly fees. The cost of the harvest document is to have a professional forester put it together for you. Some of the documents have nominal fees that come to the state for filing and bureaucratic processing. There is a little bit of talk in Sacramento about relaxing some of the harvesting regulations. That's only talk at this point, but that's about all I can talk on fees.
We'll get to the monument in a little bit. If you could hold that question, I promise you we will get to it in the back corner, and then.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. If you have the means to put the trees on the ground and dispose of them in some manner, then our regulatory authority is not triggered. Our regulatory authority is not triggered unless there's commercialization, like you were saying.
I'm not charging any fees for my services. My company's allowing me to do that. We're going to get some logs out of that. The logs have value, so hopefully, and I know what the logs are worth, but I don't know the logger's cost, but talk to the logger. Hopefully, you get the trees removed for nothing at all, or maybe make some money off the deal. It just depends on on the size of the trees, how difficult they are to get out, how much cleanup's involved, things like that. But there's no fees for my services at this point.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. We as an agency from the regulatory side of it, are going to do everything we possibly can to help Jeff out and get these things through the process. If I need to bring in extra folks because of the workload being generated, I will reach out to their surrounding units and do that, or to region office. So we're not going to let the regulatory side get so bogged down that you're having to wait 60 and 90 days for something that needs to be done. I will stay on top of that myself.
Okay, hang on just a sec. Okay, hey, is CAL FIRE available to meet with folks if they give you a call?
Absolutely. You can call down the Sanger headquarters anytime you want. You can speak to myself. You can speak to Edwin. He's probably going to be able to come out to your property and look and evaluate your trees and work with you on that. I'm not a professional forester myself. I have a long background as far as ranching and brush removal, but when it gets to the regulatory side, Edwin will answer those, but somebody will get back to you for sure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stanley, and I would like to say, first of all, with the greatest respect and appreciation, Edwin has been a gentleman with me, and Harold Kuiper, and as well as my partner over there, he's been a gentleman with me, and we're trying to work our way through this thing. It's a problem that's been going on a long time. I've only been here 10 years. But I have to say that 10 years ago, that up above Hogback Road, there was a problem there then, and they worked on that problem at that time. And I don't know whether it was because of, I hate to get on this point, of Bill Clinton's deal or what it was, but I will say that when I took out my bad trees, it stopped my problem.
Thank you. One more question.
This is to Jeff. Now, as we as landowners, do we have to contact you for the trees that are on our property? Or is CAL FIRE working on a plan here?
I'm doing the plan for everybody, so you need to talk to me. I submit the plan to CAL FIRE, they approve it. You need to contact the logger, I can set you up with the logger. And yeah, you need to contact me, not them.
But now, where I live, I've cut down about 6 trees of my own that are dead. I'm burning them, I'm not selling them. Now, I got about 6 or 8 more of them, good 34, 40-inch ponderosas here. They're going to go right into Highway 245 if I cut them down, and I'm not experienced enough to cut them down. That's where I need somebody. That's what I'm wondering, is CAL FIRE getting a plan together?
Me.
Because as far as I'm concerned of the forest and the park service and stuff, no disrespect, but every fire I've ever been on, I spent 32 years with CAL FIRE. It's a burn policy. We got the private landowners down here that's got the problem. I don't want to see weed like we saw last year. Burn the whole town of weed up. So, luckily, I've been up here 34 years, and we've had no fires up this canyon. That's why I bought over here. I've been pretty lucky, and a lot of us have been pretty lucky, a few little spot fires and stuff. Below me, south, past Carey's property, down toward Gardens, I mean, it's dead. They're at the tops. In 2 months, they're at the base. You know, all this other stuff, spraying them. If you guys can afford spraying them, fine. I can't afford. And I've got maybe 40, 50 ponderosas on me. Only one tree I hate is oak trees, but hey, I got oak trees. But I just wanted to know, we got to contact you. Okay.
So with that in mind, okay.
I just have a question. I have a neighbor that lives on the coast, and he has 60 to 80 dead cedars. He doesn't want to take them down, but they jeopardize my house and another person's house. If there was ever a fire, our houses would go because he doesn't want to take them down.
So he's an landowner up here?
Yes, he owns the land, but he lives over on the coast, and he's not going to have them taken down. And can CAL FIRE write him up if?
Yeah, that's actually ties in with the question that I was going to ask. What can landowners do in general to improve their chances of their home surviving in wildfire and dealing with what's going on out there right now?
So that's an excellent question. In the last 3 weeks, I believe this is the third week, and we're going to come back to the area as well. But we have 4 inspectors currently working in this area. They've started down on 245, starting the LE 100 clearance that I'm sure you're all aware of, Public Resources Code 4291. We can do something about those trees if they're within the 100 feet of the house. If they're not, ma'am, we cannot require that person to take those out. We don't have the statutes to do that because that is private land, and we can't enforce that. But within 100 feet of the home, we can do that, and we can get those removed. He's not allowed to have a dead and dying tree over your house. So within that 100-foot zone, we can do something. But we have inspectors out there. They're working with us every day, and if any of the questions are bringing questions to us constantly to contact landowners that you folks maybe have talked to them about, and we'll continue to do that. But we are actively doing inspections now. Obviously, the grass is green. It makes not a lot of sense to be weeding in it, but we're really looking at the trees and trying to give people help with that, clearing the lower brush, and getting your clearance. Clearance is the key. I mean, we're all in this together, you know, so that part from the community would be outstanding that all of you do that, and that'll make it safer. You know, it's safe as it can be for you as a property owner. We understand that. That's true, and that's one reason we have the inspectors out now to talk to folks, so they can get that cut, and hopefully, you're right, burn days are very premium to come by. And typically, when you get a weather system go through, that's when San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District allows a burn day. So as much as we can talk to folks and talk about what they need to be removed now, and hopefully we get a couple more burn days, and as fast as it's drying out, we're probably gonna shut down burning too. That's gonna be the next thing, right? But, you know, we understand that, and again, I'm not going to harp too hard on this community-based program, but some stuff I work with folks is your same question: what do I do with it? And those community-based programs, chipper programs, are a big thing throughout the state of California, especially in Southern California, where you go for grants to do chipping, whether you go from residence to residence and do chipping for them, or everybody brings it to one site. But those are some options. Again, if we can get a community-based program started here and work with you folks to get those types of things implemented.
Is your question is how are they going to deal with slash disposal after the trees have been removed? Okay.
Did you want to save that question until we get to that portion of the agenda?
Yeah, we'll just save that till we will answer that question. There's a whole section of the agenda that will deal with that. One of the questions that is on our list is that citizens have had to pay an additional tax, or fire tax fees, to help fund fire prevention in our foothills. Is that any of that money actually being used to prevent wildfire in that area around here?
Specifically to your area, how many people in this room are aware of the Greeley Fire Control Road? Okay, the Greeley Fire Control Road, okay? CAL FIRE has been working on that actively. There was some fall down money that CAL FIRE was able to use last year and a little bit this year, but we have been spending those monies that were from the SRA fee program specifically on that fuel break in this community. We've been doing that last year and this year. That even if we don't get those dollars, we're going to continue to work on that fuel break. Our camp is right here, And we consider that a very important project for us unit-wide and on this side of the mountain, and we continue to work on that. So your dollars are being spent here. Those inspectors that are out inspecting daily are funded by the Fire Prevention Fee Program. Our Prevention Bureau is funded by that. Resource Management, pre-fire staff is funded by the SRA fee. Yeah, that's correct, they were, yes. Yes. They're doing the work, that's correct, they are. Yes, they were. Yeah, we're doing more on that road than we were able to do before, in all honesty, we are. Yes, we were working on it, I'll tell you that, yes, we were.
Okay, all of us have pretty strong opinions about the fire tax fee. I'm willing to bet, and we can't be fixed here. So just know that at least it looks like some of that money is coming back. We don't know exactly how, but that's a good thing, and we'll just leave it at that. And because we can't fix the fire tax fee here. Is CAL FIRE doing anything to beef up its staffing this year, looking at where we are in drought and that type of thing?
So as far as staffing is concerned, we are staffing much earlier. We've kept engines on all winter, and we will be staffing more engines here in the next month. And as conditions continue to change and we don't get any rainfall, we will be completely staffed a lot sooner than we normally are. Normal staffing for CAL FIRE to staff these engines is May 15th for a few engines, and then we go full load. All our engines have usually been staffed in July. We're rolled that back. You know, we're staffed, like I said, the engines year-round. I wouldn't be surprised if we see full staffing well before July, probably June or even earlier. But we're evaluating that every week, and as things change, and we're giving our recommendations to increase staffing constantly to get everything up and running, to have a response that's needed. No, ma'am, it's not. That money can only be used for fire prevention type activities. Yes, ma'am, I understand. I didn't write the legislation, I'll tell you that. It's not a cop-out. I didn't write the legislation, but it was honestly written for prevention activities very specifically by the legislature.
And again, we really, there's not enough time here to address the fire tax fee, and we'll just have to leave that where it is and move on. But there is some things that we can do, and that is we have Sierra Products, Forest Products setting up here, and they're working pretty hard on this problem. So let's go ahead and move over to them, to Jeff, and go, what is your proposal to help property owners handle dead and dying tree situations? Is Terabella going to take the insurance risks, and can you provide a sample of an owner contract, those types of questions? Can you address some of those?
Okay, I'm just a paperwork guy. So I don't need any insurance, and I'm the guy that marks the trees. So the contracts between the loggers and the landowners, that's between the landowner and the loggers, and they have the insurance. Just to get their state license, they're required to have $1 million liability insurance, so they have their insurance. So I just do the paperwork. The main permit we're going to have is an emergency notice. If the tree is completely brown, the logger can cut it. If the tree has any green in it, then I need to look at it first and determine whether it's going to, whether I think it's going to die or not within the next year. If it is, I put paint on it, and they can cut the tree. So they can't just go on the property and start cutting all the trees if there's green in them, but they can cut all the brown trees. And as far as contracts, I don't know if you guys have any contracts or handshakes, whatever, but that would be between the landowner and the logger. My company will buy the logs from the loggers, and then any financial arrangements are between the landowner and the logger, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to. It's case by case basis. That's why it's so hard to give generalized. Well, how much are my trees worth? I mean, some people are going to make some money off of it, but yeah. And hopefully that's that's what it's gonna work out. Nobody's gonna have to pay money to get the trees removed, but I can't guarantee that because I'm just the paperwork guy. You have to talk, you have to talk to. Yeah, and and Caltrans has easements, and I don't have no idea how that works. Harold's worked with Caltrans for years. I think I know Brack has too, on 245. So I know that stuff can get worked out. Any more Sierra Forest product stuff?
I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. I went to look for another camera, but access roads that are on Forest Service property that have dead trees on them. What's going to happen with those? With the dead trees that are on Forest Service property? Did I miss that?
No, we do have a whole section on, we have a whole section on the Forest Service coming up, and they're just waiting over here for your questions. Owners are being told they will get what's left over. Does that mean that it's between basically whoever has the logging contract, what the timber value is worth, how much it costs to get it to the mill, and then anything that's net after that would go back to the property owner? It's all be between the property owner and the logger?
That's correct.
So basically, if you've got trees, you're going to have to work with the logging operator to figure out how much those trees are worth, because there is a cost in logging them and getting them to the mill in terms of how much you're going to have left over. What his company is, but if you have a logging company, somebody's still got to run a saw and get paid, so you've still got those overhead costs that are going to have to go as well.
Logs offset the logger's costs.
So.
Maybe it'd be something left over, but that's just case by case basis.
If all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, how long, again, we think we've already answered that, but how long can you expect the tree removal to take place from the time you get that contract? I think I heard you just say a couple weeks.
A couple weeks, but then we need to schedule the logger. Hopefully by midsummer we'll have it all cleaned up. That's kind of what we're shooting for, because the quality of the wood will start deteriorating after that.
Mahala, can we get a microphone over here? I'm trying to get microphones to the folks with questions so everybody can hear your question, especially those outside.
Yeah, I'm concerned when I'm driving around, I see a lot of low brush. I see a lot of low brush on the hillsides, and I don't know whether that's, a real file. It looks scary to me. Is there any way, and it's all on private property, I mean, I see it all over the place. I see some places that are cleared, but I see a lot of places that are really bad, and it's all on private. Is there any way that can be dealt with, or is that just the way it is?
That sounds like a CAL FIRE question, if there's brush on private property.
So I kind of answered it before, but I'll reiterate. It's private land, and we can only regulate clearance within 100 feet of a structure. It's up to that property owner specifically what they want to do with their land.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Sure. If a fire comes through there, I mean, maybe I'm looking at something that wouldn't be affected. I don't have to worry about it. But sometimes I think, this is really dangerous, and it's just sitting there. Is there a way of telling by looking at the terrain whether the fire is really prone to go through that area?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a million things, right? I mean, there's a million. You're right. So, yeah, I can't disagree with you. CAL FIRE doesn't tell people what to do, but what we do try to do is educate people and have people have their clearance and try to reduce the number of fire starts there is under prevention efforts and stuff. That's all we can do. I can't regulate or tell somebody what they do with their personal property. CAL FIRE cannot do that.
So let's go on and talk about the other problem, and those are our power lines. Looking at PG&E. How's PG&E addressing the tree die-off around power lines in our community?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank everybody for allowing us to be a community partner with you, and we're going to do everything that we can to help mitigate the risk of the situation going on. So what we are doing, first and foremost, our primary obligation is the safety, public safety around the conductors, and also the safe and reliable operation of electricity. So with that, we patrol our lines every year to mitigate risk around grow-ins, fall-ins. It's around state compliances, driven by the CPUC. And so right now we're in the area. We are inspecting the power lines for not only grow-in type of situations, but also fall-into situations. We're also soliciting other budget money, if you will, from the Utilities Commission to help us pay for other projects. Last year we had what we call the SEMA project, and I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but basically it was to target these dying trees. So we're going to probably be doing more than one inspection this year to help offset these trees, because as we know, these trees will end up dying throughout the year, and so we'll have to do secondary patrols to protect our facilities. So forgive me, I'm not familiar with what your $150.
Yeah, he's PG&E. Really, yeah, this would be, yeah, really the fire prevention fee we can't deal with here. I'm in the same boat that you are. We pay it. The only thing we can do is write our state representative and try to get the law changed if we don't want it. I mean, the law is the law, and we just have to pay it until we get the law changed. I mean, these guys can't do anything about that.
So I want to address the previous question, and your question was around cleanup, correct? Can you restate that question real quick for me?
Usually when you go ahead and remove the trees or the tops, you just let them sit there. You know, you do clean up a little, but the budget doesn't allow you to do any more than that on your budget part. So with the situation, when you do this now, I realize you having inspections, but the inspections isn't, you didn't answer the question. Inspection is one thing, doing the work is the other. So does your inspection include the cleanup now for the cost of these homeowners?
So there is a couple different situations. So if there's access, generally speaking, we do try to chip branches and debris less than 4 inches in diameter. That's as if there's access. We don't have the facilities to log or grapple or anything like that. Now when you're talking the facility, what we call facility protect trees, now this is trees, these are trees that are off right away, that are dying, that have the potential to fall into the power lines. So you're right, what we will do is we'll take the tops out of them and just basically make them safe, so if they were to fail, they will miss the facilities. So there is a shared responsibility. We are, our responsibility is to make sure that the power lines are safe. We don't want any kind of ignition source with the tree falling into the power line. Then we have a wire down. Then we have 12,000 volts on the ground, potentially creating a fire. Nor do we want any kind of contact or even brushing of the line where you have arcing and sparking and ignition source there. So on the larger diameter trees, off right-of-way trees, the facility protect trees, we'll take out the tops, but we do leave the debris behind. If it is in a remote area, what we will try to do is lop and scatter to the forest practice rules, which is a 16-inch lop. And but there is some responsibility on the homeowner as well.
Okay, one other question. Can we pass the microphone?
This isn't a question, but it is a thank you. We had a ponderosa pine die on our property a year ago, and PG&E was gracious enough to have ARC come and remove it. So thank you very much for your diligence.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. I appreciate that comment, and we do make a tremendous effort to keep the power lines safe and keep the community safe. And some people recognize it, like yourself, and some people still need some coaching.
Yeah, thanks for keeping my lights on when the wind blows.
You bet.
So, moving on, we've looked a little bit at what the state's doing. We've looked a little bit about what Sea Air Force Products is doing, PG&E is doing, what some private logging contractors can do. Let's move on to our federal partners and now take a look at what the Forest Service is doing. And with that, what is the Forest Service doing to address the growing tree mortality issue, which presents a pretty significant fire hazard, forest health issue? And what are your recommendations for homeowners facing this massive die-off? So I'll refer that to the Forest Service.
Okay, we're trying to do a lot of things. Okay, now we're on. We're doing a lot of things. First priority is when we recognize that we have imminent hazards. That can happen along roads, it can happen around campgrounds, it can happen near people's homes. So those are our first priority. We work a lot with Forest Health Protection, and primarily that's Beverly and Martin. They come out and help us identify areas where we've got problems, help us understand what they are so that we have some idea what we might be able to do about it. So they're very helpful in that regard. On a larger scale, we're trying to reduce the overall stand density on a lot of the forest, because that's where a lot of the problem lies with the drought. When you have too many trees, there's just not enough water to go around, and then that has all kinds of repercussions with the effect of insects and disease, and frankly, some of the air quality issues. They aren't just about when you can burn, but some of our air quality doesn't exactly help our trees out either. So they're suffering from a lot of stressors, and so aside from immediate hazards, we're also trying to reduce stand density. The first priority for that is around communities, or what we call the wildland-urban interface, one of our fancy terms for next to homes. On a larger scale, we're really trying to expand out into the overall forest, but when you look at the size of the forest, it's a little over 1 million acres, and so there's a lot of ground to cover. We don't have anywhere close to enough money to do it. So again, we're trying to prioritize. We're talking a lot in California about increasing the pace and scale. The way we've been going and the speed we've been going isn't close to fast enough. So we're trying to get some help in Region 5, which is California, to increase that pace and scale. And in fact, right now, we're getting in line with everyone else in California, the Forest Service, for about $30 million that's being potentially made available to deal with hazardous fuels. So we're putting our best foot forward, trying to get as much of that as we possibly can, but time will tell.
We've heard that trees in the National Monument are protected and that there's nothing that can be done, even though there's a tremendous amount of dead and dying trees surrounding our communities. Is that true? And if that's so, how can we organize to change that? And can't they be considered hazard trees? If trees can be removed in the forest, if trees can be removed in the forest, how will structures inside the monument be protected?
Okay, and I think I'd like to maybe use the map that I have on the wall a little bit, just to, maybe I'll switch microphones with you if you don't mind. So outside, I don't know if folks got a copy of the, let's get you a mic. Okay. So outside there was a copy of a briefing paper that we put together with a Forest Service emblem on it. If you didn't get a copy of it, we can make sure that we email it to you. But over here on the wall, I just wanted to refer to this map for folks, just so that I could give you a little bit of spatial information about the monument. So Beverly and her folks, well, not every year, but last year they did what we call a mortality flight for the Forest Service, and she mentioned that the forests up and down the Sierra Nevada are experiencing this same kind of mortality. But here on this map, this is the Sierra National Forest up here. And then here we've got the the monument that's within this thicker green boundary. And then the Kings Canyon National Park is right here in the brown. So you've got the Monarch Wilderness and the Jenny Lakes Wilderness as well. So these yellow polygons that you see here is what the 2014 mortality flight, the aerial flights mapped as areas that were showing mortality. And then what we've got going this year is we're out actually mapping areas on the ground, and that's the red, the new mortality from this year. So here's Pinehurst here, and your monument boundary is right surrounding the area. So you're basically a large inholding within the national monument. And as most of you know, the national monument, which was proclaimed in 2015 years old now this year, has a monument plan of which we are working to be able to implement. We did propose a project shortly after, a month after I came to the district in 2013, that we're currently working to get some clarification on what the specifics of the monument plan will allow for us to do. But as Jim mentioned, one of the things we know we can do is work on falling eminent hazardous trees. And we have to do that with specific documentation on each and every one of those trees. So we're working on that with our staff at the district office, and we're continuing to try to work through the eminent hazard trees that we have. However, the rest of the trees that we know we need to be able to also manage, there's still some clarity that needs to come from that, and that's currently what we're working on. So two things. One, we have some projects that are already in the works. That's the MacKenzie Ranch project that's in the darker black polygons here, and you are familiar probably with a lot of those units. That's thinning trees and then coming in and underburning later. And then we are also looking forward to new work on the ground on this monument land. And I put a sign-up sheet out front for folks who want to get on our mailing list. But we are looking at, in the near future, going out with additional, what we call public scoping, to get your input to our process. And that's really what we're asking for you to get involved and to give us your input as we go forward with new projects in the monument. So it is national monument land, but the monument plan does allow for some management. It's just very specific. It's different than the rest of the national forest land. It is different. The restrictions that we have are a lot more specific and require a lot more documentation. There were several parts of that question, so what else?
I think you answered most of them. What about hazard trees? Can they be removed?
Okay, so the hazard trees, and so this is from Martin, has actually come to help us with hazard tree training on the district. The hazard trees can be removed. However, a hazard tree, as Martin has trained us well, has to have a target. So the hazard tree has to actually have a defect, be dead, and to be a hazard tree, a true hazard tree, it has to be a target, has to have a target. So our hazard trees are along roadways, developed campgrounds. The target can be a building, it can be a work center, but I actually have to have something that tree is going to hit in order to call it a hazard tree. And if we have that, then we have a form that we fill out, and then we actually will get our fire crews to go out and help us fall those trees. With the rec residences, we have to ask the rec residents to actually do that work at their rec resident cabin. But we can fall eminent hazard trees that have a high enough rating in our rating system. So yes, we can.
So that goes along with the deeded access through the Forest Service into private property.
That's correct. So along a Forest Service road, if there
Deeded access off time.
Deeded access.
To be specific.
Okay.
100 dead cedar trees are going to fall on the road. It's a deeded access, goes into private property.
Okay. We would have to look at that specifically with you. There is some work that the Forest Service can do to help, but I'm not going to. It's a fuel break. Okay. It's okay.
The rest of the cedars have died.
Okay. Yeah. So there are projects like that the Forest Service with our crews can help with, but depending upon the size of the tree, we have to go and document those trees on the forms that I'm talking about. So.
Can I ask you, you do this process pretty quick, because on the Armenian Church Camp Road, you took care of that like that. You cut those eminent danger trees down.
Yeah.
That happened overnight, practically.
Yeah, well, with this time of year and with the weather that we've been getting, our fire crews have been available to work on the roads where we do get folks calling and letting us know about trees. We'll get up there, we actually document them, and we'll get our fire crews to actually fall the trees. They leave the trees after they fall them. We don't remove them and take them anywhere.
So the process is kind of speedy, it moves along.
It can, depending upon the time of year. When the fire season hits, then our fire crews will have other priorities if there's fires that they have to go to. Yeah. Well, just to give you the straight answer for that, the straight answer for that is that it has to be documented because we are monitored very closely by the public, and that we are basically under the Freedom of Information Act rules in that you and everybody else in this room has access to come into my office and request why we did something, how we did something, and get all the information from me on that. So if I don't have documentation of why we cut that tree down, then I'm going to have a lot of people to answer questions to. So, yeah, it's a lot of work.
Okay, back in the corner.
One question is, you said it has to have a target. Are the giant sequoia groves considered a target?
Well, that's a good question. So, Martin, you're my expert of targets here.
Sorry, I never thought about that one. So what's going to fall on it? Another giant sequoia?
The giant sugar pines are going to fall and jackknife on it, and they're going to cause a fire hazard.
Well, the giant sequoia is pretty fire resistant.
Another question I have then is the Forest Service ratcheting up its workforce? Because, I mean, the scale of what you have on the national forest, there's a 1 million acre national forest here. You have a huge scale. Are you ratcheting up? You don't have timber management officers in all your forests for every district anymore. You used to have all these people that you're talking about, that I think, Jim, that all the hats he wears, used to be an individual for each one of those different roles. And now you have fewer people and a huge problem. Is there a sense of urgency within the region to beef up and meet the criteria that we have right now?
Well, the answer to your question, no, we are not ratcheting up our workforce. Our workforce is very, very slim right now. With the exception of our fire staffing, we're at the lowest levels that I've ever seen in 25 years working for the Forest Service. So, no, we do not see additional funding on the horizon. Even though the region does consider it to be important and critical, they're not getting any additional money either. Our budgets are continuing to decline. So, Jim.
One thing I'd add to that is rather than hiring a bunch of new people that we'd have to pay year after year, we have other options of going. There are these groups that work for the Forest Service called enterprise teams. You go get them when you need them, you contract with them, they do the work, and then when they're done, they go away. Oh yeah, we do that constantly because, as Teresa said, we just can't afford to hire a whole bunch of people that we have on year after year. The other thing is, of course, we contract with private contractors to do all kinds of work. We do our thinnings, sometimes it's commercial with Harold and Sierra Forest Products and Jeff. Sometimes it's small tree thinning where it really has no value, but we still go out and contract with private contractors to go out and do that work. And again, they come, they do the work, we pay them when we have enough money, and then we don't have to keep them on our workforce year round.
Back in the corner. There are a very large volume of federal laws, rules, and regulations that have to be followed very intently. Dave?
Yeah, I just want to summarize to make sure I understood what the Forest and Source Service answered to these questions. So there's a lot of dead trees. They could fall and hurt something, or they could burn up and hurt something. And those are the questions that were asked. And what I'm hearing is that if a tree is going to fall and smash something that we built, Forest Service is working aggressively to take them out. If the trees or any kind of forest mortality is close to developed areas, the Forest Service is working pretty aggressively to thin those areas. And for the rest of the forest, it's good to be, that could burn, but it's a long ways away from buildings and stuff like that, so it's considered to be a lower hazard, it's a lower priority. Is that accurately representing what I just heard?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Let me answer the first one, and then we'll move on. Yeah, the greater forest away from communities, roads, is a lower priority. We want to get to it, but we really think it's more important to start around communities and around the infrastructure that we already have in place. Maybe in a few minutes we'll get to the whole fire hazard section, and our fire chief can add a little bit more to that. We have all kinds of strategies to try to deal with things on a grander scale, but they aren't things that we feel very comfortable doing in your backyard. For example, if we get a lightning strike and it's in an area where we don't really see much of a risk, and we see that there's a potential benefit from that fire, why would we spend millions of dollars to put it out? On the other hand, we have to be very thoughtful about that.
Right here? No, that red band. Right here? Okay, so the mortality flight information is the yellow polygons, but we don't have the 2015 flight completed. So what we've been doing to try to get some additional information on mortality is actually going out on the ground and mapping areas. So the red is on the ground mapped mortality. Oh, okay. So here's Hume Lake right here. This is, I don't know if you can just kind of see where my finger is. And so this is the private property at Hume Lake, and then it's just that the ridge. I don't remember the park. Yeah, my lookout here. All right, I'm so lucky. Park Ridge. Yeah, Park Ridge right here is pretty much all dead. Yeah, MacKenzie. Okay. Yeah, and so Beverly was up there today.
Beverly, do you have any comments on MacKenzie? It's probably preliminary. She just probably did a pretty basic survey, but can you tell us anything?
Well, you know, I will say that a lot of the mortality actually looks like it's so let me just back up a little bit. When bark beetles kill a tree, it usually takes about a good full year for the trees to turn red. Now, western pine beetle has numerous flights during the summer, meaning like there's peak periods where adult beetles will move from one tree, you know, and then a new generation emerges and they go to attack another tree. So a lot of the trees that might just be turning red right now were actually attacked last year. And those generations are developing in those red trees to move to green trees. And so if you're seeing a lot of trees that still have a slight yellow-green, I mean, they're most likely the ones that still have bark beetles on the inside of them. And what I noticed is that, yes, a lot of those trees were actually killed. It looks like just by they were killed in 2013, turned color in 2014, and then it's doubled. What it looks like was killed last year in 2014. That's now turning red for 2015. So it sadly is a lot.